President Trump plans to eliminate the Department of Education with an executive order. This is an assault on every young American who went to public school like me. This is an assault on every American family who has someone who is disabled and needs the IDEA program to provide education. This is an assault on every neighborhood in America that has a public school that gets Title I funding. This is an assault on every child who gets school lunches in America. This is an assault on our public teachers across this country. This is an assault on every American who has gotten any federal financial aid to go to vocational school or to go to public college or to get an education like I did. The president does not have the constitutional authority to do this. It is cruelty. It is taking away the bedrock of education in this country.
Trump's plans to cut the Department of Education are reportedly coming to a reality and are expected to take place next week. What is the Department of Education, and how has Trump already acted to reduce it? Let me explain. On his campaign trail, Donald Trump was vocal about the removal of the Department of Education, stating,
"Across the country, we need to implement strict prohibitions on teaching inappropriate racial, sexual, and political material to America's school children in any form whatsoever. And if federal bureaucrats are going to push this radicalism, we should abolish the Department of Education."
The Department of Education began operating in 1980 with a mission to promote student achievement and preparation for global competitiveness by fostering education excellence and ensuring equal access. The department had a budget of about $241 billion in 2024. The majority of this budget is used in the Office of Federal Student Aid. This office helps more than 9.9 million students a year make secondary education possible via grants, work study, and loans, authorized under Title IV of the Higher Education Act of 1965. On January 21st, Donald Trump signed an executive order dealing with DEI titled Ending Illegal Discrimination and Restoring Merit-Based Opportunity, which had a subsection directly addressing Title IV stating, "Within 120 days of this order, the Attorney General and the Secretary of Education shall jointly issue guidance to all state and local educational agencies that receive federal funds, as well as all institutions of higher education that receive federal grants or participate in the Federal Student Loan Assistance Program under Title IV of the Higher Education Act." Yesterday, dozens of workers in the Department of Education reported receiving letters placing them on administrative leave, citing the DEI executive order. Trump's administration has already put forward plans to reduce the federal workforce, such as the Deferred Resignation Program for federal employees, explained in a memo sent out to eligible federal employees on January 28th. The Deferred Resignation Program aims to quickly reduce the amount of federal employees, offering incentives for workers to voluntarily resign from their positions by February 6th and be placed on paid leave until September 2025. These plans affirm the ambitions of the new Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, headed partly by Elon Musk. This department has been helping the Trump administration explore drastic governmental cuts, including the Department of Education. This was emphasized by a tweet sent out by Musk on February 4th. DOGE is the wood chipper for bureaucracy. What do you think of Trump's goal to get rid of the Department of Education? Let us know in the comments.
We have some big news right now. The Trump administration, according to Politico and the New York Times, is preparing an executive order to completely shutter the Department of Education. According to Politico, this order will be signed sometime in February and is expected to lay out a two-part strategy for shuttering the agency completely. First, it would direct the department to craft a plan to wind down its functions using its existing administrative authority. It would also call on the department to essentially delegate parts of the current structure to other agencies that could fulfill its duties, essentially dismantling as much of the agency as possible via executive order. Now, the Trump administration cannot just abolish the Department of Education via executive order. This is an independent federal agency that was established by an act of Congress that is fully funded by Congress. But know that this is coming, and this is something that you should expect over the next several weeks, that Trump will sign some type of executive order to dismantle the Department of Education. I'll do a full breakdown on what this means for you and the future at my Substack, linked in my bio. As always, comment below your thoughts, spread the word, and follow along to stay updated on all the news you need to know about. It's going to be a very busy next several weeks, so more to come.
I am crying tears of anger right now. Did you guys see what Mr. President Donald Trump just did? He signed an executive order to dismantle the Department of Education. Now, for one, he has no legal authority to do that for so many reasons, civil rights violations, but the fact that now he wants to come after our kids. He wants to come after our kids is where I'm taking it personal. And I'm taking it personal because I have a son who has mild to moderate autism. And so he gets services in school. He's a special needs student and he gets special needs services in school. Now, if the president succeeds in this, all children with special needs will lose out on services. We really need to impeach this motherfucker. Who do we need to call? Ghostbusters? The cartel? The Italian mafia? The Mexican mafia? The homies? The extraterrestrials? Get this motherfucker out.
I can't help but feel like I'm watching the destruction of America right before my very eyes. The White House is preparing an executive order to abolish the Department of Education. And if you don't understand the ramifications of this, let me give you some game. The Department of Education is responsible for the billions of dollars that are sent to the educational system to fund programs, to fund education, especially in places like the hood and places where the less fortunate live. The money that they get to fund programs comes from the federal government. Now that that has been abolished, what is going to happen is it's going to be left up to each individual state to decide how they're going to spend money. They're not getting any money from the government, so they're going to have to raise money. And depending on the amount of money that they raise and what they want to distribute to education will basically decide the type of education that your child receives. So now education will be different from state to state. You may have a better education living in Michigan than you will down in Tennessee and things like that. And not only that, even financial aid now. Financial aid is going to have to be outsourced to private lenders, okay? Which means that you're going to be paying a much higher annual percentage rate on your student loans. Not to mention that this is going to lead to staff cuts and even school closures. So if you can't afford a private education, I really don't know what to tell you if you can't put your kids in private school. You're going to see a lot more people going into private schools. You're going to see a lot more people deciding to even homeschool. But there's going to be huge disparities in the level of education that kids receive from state to state, hood to hood. This is just truly sad to see. And I don't understand it. And I'm tired of it. Let me know your thoughts on this. How do you feel about this?
It's official. They're coming for the Department of Education, and no, I ain't bullshit. President Donald Trump is pushing to dismantle the U.S. Department of Education through a new executive order, according to sources who spoke to the Washington Post. While Trump wants to eventually close the department, only Congress can fully shut it down. For now, his team is working to cut staff and funding to dismantle it slowly from the inside. So, what's happening right at this moment? Well, the administration has placed many employees on leave and urged others to just quit. A group tied to Elon Musk called the Department of Government Efficiency, or the DOGE, doggy, whatever you want to call it for short, has sent 20 staffers into the education department to find ways to slash costs. The Washington Post reports that some DOGE workers access private student financial aid records. The Department of Education is such an important entity. The agency manages key programs, including school funding. They send billions of dollars to high poverty K-12 schools, and they support students with disabilities. They also manage student loans and Pell Grants, overseeing trillions of dollars. They also enforce civil rights. They enforce laws against discrimination in schools. Trump's plan is simple. His order would essentially order the department to draft a plan to cut staff and move its duties elsewhere. elsewhere. 2, suggest shifting student loans to the Treasury, and then civil rights enforcement to the Justice Department. That's what he wants to do. But these changes need congressional approval. Laws require certain education department offices to exist, so bypassing Congress could lead to lawsuits, but Trump ain't afraid of no lawsuits, and right now Congress is controlled by the Republicans that do his bidding. These people say dismantling the Department of Education will save government money, but this accounts for 4% of all federal funding in 2024. It's not even in the top 5 in funded federal agencies. So is this really about efficiency, or is this about screwing over the working class again and again and again?
I just saw a video of Mr. Williams pre-K talking about how Trump is gearing up to dismantle the Department of Education, and if he signs that executive order, then all the teachers should walk out. And honestly, as an educator, I agree, because America is literally run on teachers. Like, school is one of the biggest forms of childcare. If your children can't go to school, if no one's at school to watch your children, you can't go to work, they can't go to work, shit doesn't get done for the country. And so him suggesting people walk out, I'm like, wow, that's like a really good idea. That's a really good idea for protest. And a couple scrolls later, I saw somebody stitch his video and say, teachers aren't going to walk out. They never do. Nothing ever happens. Nothing ever gets done. You want to know why nothing ever gets done? It's because of people like you. That's why nothing ever gets done. And then people in the comments are just like, oh, we don't have a union over here. Like, it's illegal for us to walk out over here. Like, what has been going on within the government for this past 2 weeks that has been legal? That has been constitutional, that has been precedented. And also in the video, they said the people who are going to be mostly affected by this are lower class and middle class children. And I fear that's the point. I genuinely fear that is the point. It is called the 1% because they are the 1%. The majority of people will be affected by this. And then when everybody starts being affected, that is when change is enacted. When the majority starts being affected, that is when change will take action. Oh my fucking God. I hate you niggas. I hate you niggas who are like, nothing's ever gonna happen. Nobody ever does anything. We're not gonna go and protest. And that is the reason why nothing ever happens. Y'all are the sole fucking reason. And before y'all get in my comments saying like, oh, we need to take down the rich. We need the rich to be affected. What do you think is going to happen to companies, CEOs, people who own those companies, when their employees don't come in because they can't find anybody to take care of their children? What the fuck do you think is gonna happen when they don't have workers? What do you think is going to happen?
So apparently the Trump administration is gearing up to sign an executive order to get rid of the Department of Education. I've been seeing a lot of discourse about it, so I just wanted to come on here and quickly say that executive orders do have limitations. This is actually not something that President Trump has the authority to do. The Department of Education was not created by way of an executive order. It was created by way of Congress, which means that he would need congressional approval to do something like this. And that's the thing with Trump, is that there's so much fear mongering going on with his administration. We've seen all of these executive orders come into play. And the thing about it is he's doing that as a tactic to make it seem like he has more authority than what he actually has. Because what ends up happening is that all these executive orders end up getting blocked by federal judges. And then, you know, there's a whole process to litigate these out to see whether or not they will hold any viability or any force of law. But in reality, it is just a fear tactic. You guys will be fine. And so I don't want people to fear monger over this idea of like, oh, what's going to happen with the Pell Grant? What's going to happen to colleges and public education and all the things? Guys, one thing that the Biden administration did do was appoint. So next to the president's power as commander-in-chief over the military, my next favorite power that a president has is the ability to appoint federal judges. And believe it or not, President Biden appointed more Black federal judges than any president in history. He appointed so many judges at the end of his term, and that will play out very, very well in the face of Trump doing all of these executive orders. So please do not get scared or nervous about what he's doing. This is a tactic. My light cut out, so I stopped recording. So I wanted to come back on here just to remind everybody that executive orders do carry limitations. They are only as powerful as the implied or express authority granted to the president by Congress. And yet still, they are all subject to judicial review. Again, the one thing that the Biden administration did do well was appoint federal judges. And so yet still, President Trump is going to have to go through this entire process to litigate this out in court. And so the Department of Education is not going anywhere for any time soon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yesterday, Donald Trump signed an executive order titled Ending Radical Indoctrination in K-12 Schooling. It's critical to understand the implications that an executive order like this will have on our education system. It mandates the development of an ending indoctrination strategy within 90 days. This strategy is essentially used to eliminate any anti-American teaching or teachings based on gender or discriminatory equity ideology. It also highlights mandating patriotic and nationalistic curriculum. By enforcing these types of curriculum, we're at a significant risk of downplaying or completely erasing essential parts of our nation's history. This would apply directly to talking about civil rights movements, systemic racism, or any experience of any marginalized community. This kind of selective teaching deprives students of a comprehensive and truthful understanding of our history. This executive order also directly impacts and targets LGBTQ+ students. It puts schools and teachers in a really precarious place. Schools who don't adhere to these orders can lose federal funding, and teachers who don't adhere to this can face legal consequences. This forces teachers to choose between giving their students a comprehensive education in a safe and inclusive environment and facing potential penalties. I urge you to stay informed, read this executive order in its entirety for yourself, advocate for the students and teachers in your community, attend board meetings, have discussions with others, voice your concerns about the erosion of a comprehensive education for our children, and reach out to your state and local representatives to voice your opposition. Together, we can ensure that our education system remains a place of truth, inclusivity, and growth for all students. Thank you for listening.
Close the Department of Education and move education back to the states.
But can he actually eliminate an entire department of the federal government and hand over all funding to states? The short answer is no, or most likely at least not without Congress. Congress created the Department of Education in 1979, and it would likely take another act of Congress to dismantle it. More specifically, 60 votes in the Senate, as long as the filibuster remains in place. Though one senator is trying to push a bill that could pass with just 50 votes. And while Republicans will have control of the House and Senate, it's not clear if Trump could have enough support within his own party to actually do this. One of the main roles of the department is to oversee federal funding for public schools, which many states benefit from. Trump could still try to downsize the department, which has a budget of around $241 billion and employs about 13,000 workers. If confirmed, his pick to lead the Education Department, Linda McMahon, could cut roles. But to reduce funding for the department, Trump would once again need the help of Congress. And when Trump proposed cutting the department's budget during his first term, the Republican-controlled Congress didn't follow suit.
All right, y'all. I swear every day is something new. Do you see this? Right? Now, I know I said I was going to mind my business for the next 4 years. However, not only am I an entrepreneur, I am an educator, which means that this really annoys me because we are talking about our youth right now, right? We are talking about the future of our nation. And we're trying to dismantle the very system that's responsible for ensuring that they have a quality education. Not acceptable. Not.
How bizarre.
So the Trump administration is hoping to drastically shrink the Department of Education using this executive order. But you guys, honestly, in my opinion, I don't think he can just, go after the Department of Education because it was established by Congress. And it says that they would seek a plan for Congress to abolish the department altogether, which will fulfill Trump's campaign. So, like it said, they need to go through Congress. So, so what the department does, it's responsible for the 1.6 billion federal student loan program and a range of grants for K through 12 schools. His department runs achievement tests, dubbed the nation's report card, and collects statistics on enrollment, staffing, crime in schools. It enforces civil rights laws that bar discrimination in federal funded schools on the basis of race, sex, and other factors. The states and the school districts, not the federal Department of Education, sets the criteria that runs counter to Trump's repeated call to send education back to the states because the states already have control of their education. And the department has been created in 1979. It was created by Congress because of World War II. And they wanted the veterans to go to school, get free schooling. They wanted for low income to have the funding, right? And now this, um, what I read, besides this article that I'm reading to you guys, it stated that they wanted the federal funding to go towards private schools instead of schools in low income areas. So all the tax dollars that funds our schools is going to basically private schools if this ever happens, right? So Reagan was the first president to take this on. Trump was not the first. It was Reagan in 1981 because some assholes, assholes meaning Republicans, wanted to disband it. I don't know why, after it's only been erected for 2 years, why would they want to get rid of it? I don't know. So he failed. So the department does not run Head Start school programs. So that's done. The Department of Health and Human Services does. They run the little preschools. So we don't have to worry about that. Head Start is safe unless Trump wants to go after the babies. Okay. The Food and Nutrition Department of Agriculture, not the Department of Education, provides school meals. So school meals are safe, you guys. School meals are safe unless they're saying, oh, the kids are too fat. You got to bring your own peanut butter and jelly. Okay. So now, so I guess it says the 18.4 billion Title One program that provides supplemental funding a high poverty K through 12 schools. The 15.5 billion program that helps cover the cost of education for students with disabilities. They want that out big time. You guys, when people were saying 20 Project 2025 is coming to light, this is one of them that that is coming. And this affects everybody: white, Mexican, black, Spanish, whatever you think you are, it affects you, right? If you're in some type of schooling, if you're a child, or if you're a parent, it will affect your children like it will affect mine. This is so sad. This is so sad, but we're gonna see, because I may have to put my child in private school maybe if this ever happens, if allegedly this happens. So Trump's expected executive order would not shut down the department. The education department was created by Congress, and only Congress can eliminate it. Okay? Such consecration Congressional action is unlikely. People in both parties say legislation would require a submajority of 60 votes to pass the Senate, meaning at least 7 Democrats would need to support the plan, which absorbs say is inconceivable. Boom, you guys, your answers right there, bitches. The Department of Education definitely ain't going nowhere. If it does, I don't know what to say. But a lot of people oppose this. They don't want it to go anywhere. And I don't know what Trump is trying to do to actually get rid of these programs. What is he doing? Where is he trying to put I don't, you guys, this is my opinion. I'm speculating. Okay? I don't know. Is he trying to put the money in him and his buddies' pockets? Or what? Because like people been saying there's a divide between the rich and the poor because there's no middle class. And I believe it. And the middle class been shrinking since 2020. And they haven't came back since. You either have it or you don't. And we're falling into that category where a lot of people, they're just not going to have it. So the education department runs the 1.6 trillion student loan program. It's the single biggest mission. Theoretically, the federal government could drastically reduce the department's role in student borrowing. But if they take away that department, somebody in the government is just going to pick it up. Like, they think the government ain't going to want their damn money. And for that one girl I see dancing in the video, okay, uh, uh, you still gonna have to pay. So don't be celebrating. You're celebrating too soon, honey. So, okay, so this is what I was talking about. The federal government's role in education grew after World War II when it increased spending. One of the ways spending increased was through the GI Bill, which provided millions of military veterans and educational benefits such as free college and tuition. The passage of civil rights legislation gave the federal government new powers to ensure schools do not discriminate against the students. And the Department of Education was created under Jimmy Carter. You know, this is crazy. But listen, we don't know until it actually happens. And in the end, there's nothing we can really do except go along with it. We'll just see. But hell, what do I know? I'm just trying to educate myself. Have a great day, YouTube.